You have been so focused on learning how to fly that you never noticed you have not built the ground yet. After I graduated from college, I tried everything, literally everything. One thing after another, each one feeling like it could finally be the breakthrough I was looking for. And every single time, the same thing happened. I would start strong, stay consistent for a while, and then nothing. No results, no traction, no sign that any of it was working. So I stopped, told myself it wasn't the right thing, moved on to the next. And the cycle repeated itself so many times that I genuinely started to wonder if the problem was me. It took me longer than I would like to admit to realize what was actually happening. It was not that I was choosing the wrong things, nor that I was lazy or undisciplined. It was that I kept trying to fly without ever building the ground to fly from. I was so focused on the height I wanted to reach that I never stopped to ask whether there was anything solid underneath me. Whether the basics were actually mastered, whether the foundation was actually there. It wasn't. And without it, every attempt, no matter how much energy I put into it, was always going to collapse under its own weight eventually. That is when I started to understand what Sawamura Daichi from Haikyuu was actually about. Not the stern captain everyone sees on the surface. Not the team dad meme. Something much quieter and much more important than either of those things. Daichi is the only character in Haikyuu who consciously chose to be the ground. Not the one who flies, but the one who makes flight possible. And once I understood that, I realized he had been teaching me something I desperately needed to learn, long before I ever thought to look for it. Because here is what nobody tells you about building anything. A team, a career, a life. The most important part is never the part you can see. It is never the spike, the jump, the moment of visible impact, but the floor underneath all of it. The thing that absorbs every collision, holds every weight, and makes sure that when someone needs to fly, the ground paves the way beneath them. Daichi spent his entire career being the floor, and in doing so, he quietly became the most important person on the court. I want to tell you something about the moment Daichi became more than just a captain to me. It was the rematch against Aoba Josai in Season 2. If you have watched Haikyuu, you already know what that match meant. Aoba Josai was at match point. Oikawa Toru, the best setter in the prefecture, a player whose serves alone are enough to dismantle a team's entire system before it even gets started, was in the service line. One failed receive, and the match was over. Karasuno would lose. The third years would be one step closer to the end of their high school volleyball careers. Everything they had built, everything they had fought for, sitting on the edge of one single moment. And Daichi received it perfectly. Not spectacularly. Not in a way that made highlights or generated the kind of reaction Hinata's quick attacks do. He simply got low, held his ground, and converted Oikawa's chaos into a clean, stable pass that gave his teammates exactly what they needed to connect. One receive. The whole match breathed again because of it. That moment stayed with me for a long time before I understood why. I thought that I had goosebumps from the insane transition of Oikawa's serve to Daichi's receive, but it was much more than that. What I eventually understood was this. Daichi was not reacting at that moment, he was already prepared for it. His entire philosophy, the one he had been living quietly across every practice, every match, every moment nobody was watching, had been building toward exactly this. The ability to stand in the most pressurized situation imaginable and not flinch, not because he felt nothing, but because he had already decided, long before the serve was tossed, that his job was to be the thing that does not move. This is what I would like to call foundational integrity. And it is the most precise description of Daichi's worldview I have learned. He does not lead by being the best or the loudest. He leads by being the most stable. His entire identity is built around one quiet conviction: that for others to fly, someone has to consciously choose to be the ground. And that choice, unglamorous, unremarkable, invisible to anyone not paying close attention, is the reason Karasuno functions at all. The Wakutani match proved this from the other direction. When Daichi collided with Tanaka and was carried off to the infirmary, I remember feeling genuinely helpless. And it was not for the reason I expected. It was not because Karasuno lost their best scorer, but because I realized that Nishinoya, as exceptional as he is, could never hold the entire backline alone. Daichi was always there, dividing those receiving responsibilities with him, and that shared weight was what made Karasuno's backline so dangerously stable. The moment Daichi was gone, that stability uncovered itself as something the team had been taking entirely for granted. Enoshita came in and did everything he could, but the damage was already visible. Not just in their playstyle, but in their faces. Everyone got anxious. Everyone got smaller. Because the floor had cracked, and suddenly every ball felt like it might hit the ground. And here is where it stopped being about volleyball for me. I spent years trying to be Hinata. Not literally, but in every way that mattered. I wanted the jump, the spike, the visible highlight moment where everything clicked and people could see it working. And I kept wondering why nothing was sticking, why every attempt collapsed before it could become anything real. What I could not see, what I refused to see for a long time, was that I had never built a Daichi underneath any of it. I simply had never done the quiet work, never mastered the basics thoroughly enough, and never built a floor stable enough to hold the weight of what I was trying to build on top of it. That season of life where everything feels urgent and nothing feels stable yet is not the time to perfect the spike. It is the time to master receiving, to build the floor so thoroughly, so quietly, so consistently that when the Oikawa moment arrives, and it will arrive, you do not crumble under it. You absorb it. You convert it. You hand your future self something solid to stand on. Daichi never chased the highlight because he never needed to. He already understood something it took me years of collapsing attempts to learn. That the ground is not a consolation prize for those who cannot fly. The ground is the prerequisite for flight itself. Without it, there is no flight. There is only falling and telling yourself it was almost something. Daichi never made it to the top of the mountain. He was the mountain, and every person who ever stood on him launched from him or landed safely because of him. None of them fully understood what was holding them up. That is not a tragedy. That is exactly what he chose. Because Daichi already knew something that most of us are still figuring out. That the ground does not need to be seen to be necessary. It just needs to hold. The only thing he ever asked of himself was this: when the moment comes and the ball is falling, and everything depends on whether you stay or you crumble, will the ground hold? It always did.